What is going on, people, and welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Marcus McCoy. I am so excited to be here today. Got a great show planned for you all. We're going to be interviewing Carlton Young. Man, this brother is on fire. He has some great things going. He's a motivational speaker, father, husband, veteran, but overall just a man of God. And I think if you ask him yourself, he would say that would be probably the title he's most appreciative of. So without further ado, we would like to introduce our guest, Carlton Young, to the show. Welcome to the show, brother.
What's going on, Marcus? How you doing, man? Thanks
Uh,
for having me.
oh, absolutely. Thank you for being here. Look, brother, we've been talking back and forth for a couple months about this. And hey, look, I'm ready to dive in, good brother. If you can, tell the listeners about yourself.
Well, man, I'm as you said, I'm a military veteran. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. I'm a son. I'm just your typical man, right? That has gone through a lot of life, a lot of self-inflicted wounds, and just got to the point where I felt that I was not giving God what was due Him with my life and my talents. So I'm just a man that's just steadily striving to become that version of God that God can say He's proud of, and hear Him say, "Well done, thy good and faithful servant," when my days are over. So, man, that's just me in a nutshell, man. I got a big heart. I want to see people win. I want to see people just realize the potential within them and not take as long as it took me. So, man, that's just me in a nutshell. And, last but not least, I'm the bros. I had to throw that in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started. You see he has the I am 80-20 nation. So we're gonna start with that. Where does this the premise of 80-20 come from, good brother?
So there's this thing, it's called the Pareto principle. It's the 80-20 rule, right? So you can look at it several different ways. So when I first went with it, I also do some fitness training, some health and wellness type things, right? Because that's another thing I want to see my people is just become healthy, where they can live a good life, right? You're not promised any day you're not promised a long life, but you want to maximize and have a quality of life while you're here. So it started during the pandemic. I saw that our people were adversely affected and impacted by COVID. So I figured, I was into health and fitness. Let me do something to try to get my people moving, get my people motivated to take care of their body. So it started out with 80% nutrition, 20% exercise. So 80% of what you eat really determines how healthy you are. A lot of times we think that we can go to the gym and out train a healthy diet. I mean, an unhealthy diet. And so that's where it started, but then it morphed into something totally different, because the lane that I wanted to go down, God didn't want me to go down that lane. He wanted me to swerve, make a U-turn and go down this overall holistic panoramic wellness. So, then you can reverse it and say 20% of the things that you do give you 80% of the outcomes you get. So if you're not getting the things that you want out of life, you need to see what you're putting into your computer. What are you downloading into your system to get the output? So that's where 80-20 come from. It's nutrition and it's life. And oftentimes, even in relationships, we'll mess up the 80 for the 20. And then when you get to 20, you be like, bruh, this 20 ain't worth it. So it's just the overall life, man.
Yeah, man, that is awesome. So all right, so let's talk about being a transformation agent for God. So when you hear this particular phrase or term, what comes to mind for you when you hear this?
It's changing who you are. Romans 12:2, right? It says, be renewed by the transforming of your mind, right? So a transformation of agent of God is for us to, as specifically men, starts with men, to change who we are at the core, right? A lot of us are broken. We come from broken contexts. We come from situations that we grew up in survival, and it was not based in love, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all we know is survival. So what we tend to do is we tend to pack the trauma and bury the trauma deep within ourselves, and just keep on moving like you're okay. But until you really transform yourself, right? It's just like a rehab of a house. Sometimes you got to tear the guts out. You got to tear it down to the foundation and fix the foundation, and then reframe the house, and then you can actually have a solid house that can stand. So a transformation of God is just allowing God to come in and help you deal with the things that you've been running from, things that you've been hiding that no one knows, and the things that you're dealing with that only you and God know that you're dealing with, and maybe one or two other people in your life. So it's really just transforming your thought process, transforming your mindset, transforming the way that you do things that have given you the outcomes that really haven't been the most beneficial to you in your life. And a lot of times we don't want to face that, right? You know, a lot of times we think we can do one thing and it solves the problem, or we think when we come to God, God is just yes, God will save you automatically, right? But there's still a process that you need to go through in order to become the person that God wants you to be. So you have to be transformed. So God is going to transform you if you allow it to be, if you surrender yourself, and if you want to get to the levels of success that I know everybody wants to get to, right? You're going to have to do the work, because if you don't do the work, once you get to that level of success, you can attain it, but you won't be able to retain it or sustain it. So I want to help people transform and change their lives and mindsets so that they can get to level. I've been successful. I've done well in sales. I've climbed the corporate ladder to sales director. I've done a lot of things, but there was still always that nagging thing that I had packed deep down within me that I never dealt with, that I didn't feel impacted me, but until I went in and really did the work and pulled up the roots. See, a lot of times what we do is we just pull the root at the surface, and we don't realize that there's a whole root that goes far, deep, long, and wide. And
Mm.
so what happens is we only cut it at the surface. That root is going to spring up again. When the root springs up again, it's really going to bring more seeds, and it's going to continue to grow further. And once it comes up, it's going to spread even more seeds. So now you don't have a healthy garden. You have a bunch of weeds, or a healthy yard. You have a bunch of weeds in your yard. So you got to really go in and transform like replow everything. That's transforming, right?
All right.
Replowing everything, pulling up everything, uprooting everything, and then starting over. So that's the basis of it, man.
That's deep. That's deep. So I'm gonna kind of piggyback on that in terms of success, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I think of success, this is a conversation I had with some people a while ago. Is if you think of success or elevating, and I've seen a lot of like in like past 6 or 7 months or so, I seen you on a lot of different podcasts. I think you were on that. It was a Level Up or Elevate with Corey Hughes. Which one was
Yeah,
it?
level up series.
Okay, Level Up series. That was a great podcast, by the way. A little series that you guys are listening. Definitely invite you to tune in. I actually shared it on my platform, so if you're listening, go ahead and check it out. But what I was thinking is, when you think about success, right? Anytime we get to have a level of success, or we're going to a certain place, right? Whether, especially when there's something that we're chasing that we really want, you can't. I pair success with elevation. You can't elevate without leaving something, right? Planes don't fly on the ground. Helicopters don't fly on the ground, right? If you were to take your body and levitate, you would have to leave wherever you're at to reach a higher status. So in saying that, I understand that with success, there's some things you have to leave behind. There might be some people you need to leave behind, some habits you need to leave behind. So, separation and success are they're hand in hand to an extent. What do you think about that?
Oh, I definitely believe it, man. Just to go back to that plane analogy, right? Sometimes they have to take some weight off the plane in order for the plane to take off, right? They'll
Mm-hmm.
say this plane is overweight. We need to remove some of the weight, because if you don't, the plane will not be able to reach the maximum altitude that the flight is designed for, right? They might say, we're going to fly at 33,000 feet, but if the plane is overweight, it can't reach that altitude. It
Mm-hmm.
can't reach maximum speed to taxi off the runway, and if it does, even on the ascent, it might damage the plane and the frame as it's ascending because of the weight. Is even if you look sometimes if there's not enough people on the plane, They'll say, can you sit here? Can you sit here? Because their weight needs to be evenly spread across. So yeah, I definitely feel like that, elevation and success should make you rethink things that you're doing. There might be some people that can't go with you to that level, and that's the excess weight, right? That's the excess baggage. I understand. I hear people, they want to be loyal. I get it, right? But that loyalty is costing you what God has for you, because God wants you to be loyal to what He has placed in you. So you're hanging on to dead weight. You're hanging on to weight that can't go with you. Look at it this way. I don't know if you saw that interview on Breakfast Club where Young Dro was on there, and he was
Mhm.
talking about his issues with drugs, his daughter's issues with drugs, and the dude in the background was laughing at him. Like, this supposed to be your people, and your people are in the background laughing at your pain and your struggle. So that's that dead weight that you have to let go in order to be able to elevate and ascend. I often say that your history does not determine destiny. Just because we have history does not mean that we share destiny. Where I'm going, God might not want you to go with me, and where you're going, God might not want me to go with you. So you got to
Yeah.
be able to discern who's supposed to be in your circle at that time and space in life. And a lot of us, we miss the opportunity to go where God has designed us to go because we are afraid to elevate and also clean house in the same sense, right? Sometimes it's not that you fell out, it's just sometimes you grow apart. Like, I got friends from life for lifetime, and I got friends I've been partners with for 30 years, 30,
Mhm.
35 years. We still cool, but I'm not saying that I put them to the side. I'm saying sometimes your circumstances and your surroundings begin to look different as you elevate in life. And if you are trying to hang on to to baggage that is not meant to go to that destination with you, you will never ever be able to get where God is He wants you to go. One of my prayers is often, God, align me with the people who look like where you want me to go. So you should be looking for people who are where you want to be versus where you've been. Because the people who have been where you've been, sometimes they only view you where they met you.
Ooh, man, look, we finna dive in, brother. We finna look. That was a mouthful. I say that all the time. A lot of people, they see you, like you said, in this previous space of previous life, right? So as you grown, you elevated, become a new you or a better version of you, they're still stuck on how you were 20, 30 years ago, right? And so because they're still in that mind frame, some of that, for some of us, some of that stuff is they see you in a negative light, right? For lack of better terms, right? But like you said, you're in this space now, right? And it goes back to a conversation me and you had. I think we talked about this 2 days ago. We were back and forth through text, and I said to you, I said we are exactly where God wants us to be right now, not tomorrow, not the next day. We're where we're supposed to be, and I find like power in knowing that. Hey, look, you know, we've been through several different obstacles in our life, and we're still blessed to be able to say we're here right now. Just this conversation between me and you, because again, I know we're gonna dive into some other parts of some things that happened to you. It's just a blessing to be able to have this space, the platform I have, the platform you have, the platforms you've been on, just to share our stories. There's so much power in somebody just hearing what we've been through. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man, you don't go through what you go through just for you. It's not just for you, right? Sometimes it's to teach you a lesson. Sometimes you go through what you've gone through because of self-inflicted wounds.
Mm-hmm.
People often say the devil, the devil. Nah, bro, you put that gun up under your chin and you pull the trigger, right?
Yeah.
Because you continue to do what you did. But even in the midst of that, God will not waste anything that you go through if you allow Him to enter into your heart, enter into your life. He can take everything that was meant for bad, like Joseph said, he can turn around and mean it for good. And now you have a story to tell somebody, because there's somebody in your sphere of influence, in your circle of influence, and your social media friends, somebody that knows somebody that you know, that you don't even know. They are going through exactly what you've been through. They're at a point that you've been at in your life. And if you are selfish and don't open your mouth after you've survived whatever it is you survived, that's your bad, right? That means that you don't believe what you went through was for a bigger purpose, a bigger cause. I've heard, I'm with the Next Level Speakers Community, Jeremy Anderson, they had a conference I went through, and Pastor John Hanna said something that really resonates with me, right? Somebody's breakthrough, somebody's deliverance, somebody's aha moment is tied to you opening your mouth, sharing what you've been through, right? You got to let the pride aside. You got to let all the ego go and let people know where God has brought you from. Because the Bible says that we're overcome by the word of our testimony, right? So your testimony is what can free somebody else. And if
Mm-hmm.
you are walking around and you survive, because if you're here, you basically survived 100% of what you've been through. The only final day is when they put you in the ground, when they cremate you. Then you can't survive anything else because your assignment is done. But if you
Yeah,
are here and you wake up, you wake up each and every day, and you've been through what you've been through in life. Some of us have been through no father. Some of us have been through moving all over, because of our families couldn't pay our bills. Some of us have been through abuse. Some of us have been through molestation, right? You surviving that, you getting the therapy and overcoming that is exactly what someone needs to hear, because they don't feel like they can make it. They're ready to give up. And just like somebody reached back for you, you should reach back to somebody else.
absolutely, absolutely. And I always had this phrase, and I believe this in my heart, that you cannot have a testimony without a test.
Nope,
Um,
nope, 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 nope.
yeah, yeah. Um,
And
so
look, if you don't pass the test, you're gonna keep taking the test until you pass the test.
hey, look, and for those military folks out there, don't be a no go at this station, so.
Hey, I forgot about that go no go. It's been a minute for me.
Oh my goodness. All right. So yeah, this is man, it's definitely where we're supposed to be. So, all right, we always like to talk about success, right? That's something that we always, go back and forth with. But sometimes we ignore those hard times that got us there. What role, if any, did failure play in your journey? And how did your mindset evolve as you work through those challenges?
Man, failure is a part of life, right? Failure to me is just at this point in my life, because I see, right, that my outlook determines my outcome. My mindset will determine how I deal with this situation, how I respond to the situation, and ultimately how I come through the situation. So if I go in with a defeatist attitude and like this thing happened and now it's over, no, that means I just need to figure out another angle, another lane. When you are walking in your assignment, when you're walking where you're supposed to be, there are going to be obstacles. There are going to be pitfalls. There are going to be traps. Because when you walk in assignment and you walk in purpose, you believe you me, the enemy does not want you doing that, because once you get to where you're supposed to go, you start to free other people. You start to release the shackles for other people. But you got to remember this. This is one thing that I heard Winston Churchill say, one of his quotes, and I love it. And it says, "Success is not is not final. Failure is not fatal." So just because you reach that pinnacle of success, that doesn't mean you're going to stay there. That's why I was talking about earlier. It says there's three levels of success. There's attaining success, retaining success, and sustaining success. So a lot of us have attained success, but we haven't been able to retain it, right? And retaining success involves, showing up continuously, changing up our game plan, revising our strategy to continue to meet the changing landscape that we may be in, whether it's corporate, home, wherever. Like one thing about life, life is going to life. Things are going to
Facts.
change. You have to be able to adapt to the changes. In order to do that, you got to understand that success, is the rent's due every day. And for me to be successful, I have to face these challenges. I have to overcome these challenges. It's like in high school. I don't know if you remember, if you ever had some people in high school. Their parents had a little money, and they would get them nicer cars, and they had everything. And you saw that the way that they treated things that were just given to them, they didn't
Mhm.
respect it. I remember one guy, he had back in the day, he had a nice IROC Z, and he wrecked that thing, right? And then because his dad had money, so it's like I get another one.
Yeah.
But when you go through when you go through and you face these obstacles and you face failure, that's God saying, okay, I want to see, do you really want what you say you want? And then secondly, I'm going to show you that it doesn't come easy. It's not free. And then so I know if you're able to overcome these obstacles, that you will be able to maintain this success that I've given you, right? Put it this way. If Joseph knew that God say he had the dream right about going to the palace and that his brothers was going to bow down to him. But if in the midst God say, I'm going to take you here, but first your brothers are going to throw you in the pit. Then you're going to go to prison, and then you'll get to the palace. What do you think Joseph would have been like? Nah, you got something else? You got
Yeah,
another
let
route
me
for me
do
to
something
take?
different.
Yeah, give me something different, right? So I say all that to say is like you have to go through these things as part of the plan, especially when you're walking in purpose and assignment. There's always going to be an adversary. There's always going to be an issue, but it's up to me to show up and say, this is temporary. Let me figure out what I need to do in order to overcome this obstacle to get where I want to get. Because a lot of times that failure or that little obstacle is really you're right at the door, but you quit because you don't have the stick to itiveness and you don't want to persevere, right? Life trials produce perseverance. Perseverance produces character. Character builds your faith.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Then, hey, new levels, new devil. Same thing with success. I feel like success is a. I never feel like I have reached or I will reach a pinnacle because I feel like I'm always working towards something. And success for me is not necessarily like a destination. It's about the journey. It's about what happens along the way, right? For me, right now, this is a great level of success because God brought us together to have this conversation, right? But He brought us together before that, and I feel like my charge that I put on myself is to bring other like-minded people like yourself and me and other people across the world to hear these important messages. Um, we don't, especially for people who look like me and you. Sometimes we don't have these conversations out loud. Like you said, there's somebody's gonna have a breakthrough or gonna feel some relief in something that was said, whether it's from you, me, or somebody in the future, right? And if we keep these stories and these conversations to ourselves, right? Like you said, it's not necessarily for you. I mean, you're gonna be the person going through it initially, right? But there's strength in shared experiences. You mentioned childhood trauma. I think for most, not again, I don't speak for everybody, but most of the black men, the friends I have in my life, have some level of childhood trauma because we weren't taught to communicate our feelings a certain way. So
Yeah, man. That's the but you understand too. As I've gotten older, I understand like when there's something that God has placed in you, the earlier the enemy can destroy the identity of who you are and who you are to become, the easier his job is, right? So he
mhm,
takes that opportunity early and he does it often with men that look like us to destroy who we are, where we want to go, who we want to become. And we got to understand, right? We got to redefine success. For me, I had to redefine success, right? Because success, if you're not careful, success is a moving target, especially if you have your success is based on societal norms, the house, the car, the job, the trips, the clothes, right? It's
mhm.
always you always knows when you get to that level of success, there's something else out there, right? So now you're chasing a moving target that you can never find it because the target is consistently moving, right? So if you don't have the know that success comes from within, and I think a lot of times we have to really, like I said, go back to Genesis, to the root of our existence as men when we went through that early trauma, and understand there's. Have you ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah, yeah. I had it in a class when I was in college.
Right, right. So the basic needs are physiological and safety. Then you got esteem and belonging and love, right? And if
Mhm.
you get those four things as a child, then you can get to the space of self-actualization, self-actualization and self-fulfillment. But oftentimes we're missing the basic needs and the physiological needs, like again, physiological safety, belonging and love, self-esteem, affirmation. So now we're chasing success through the things that the world has deemed to be successful, which again is a moving target. But when you got to understand, my success for me is like godly now, right? My godly success. That's what I chase. Obedience to God, being in platforms like this, doing things that God has placed in my spirit and my heart to do to help somebody behind me not make the same mistakes, or somebody beside me not make the same mistakes, and just open up their mind to think a different way, and let them know success is going to get therapy and dealing with your drama. Because if you don't deal with it, you're going to try to find relief in people, places, and things.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, those people and places and things pull you further from where you need to go. And so you can never get to the level of success that you really want because you're always looking for validation outside you. You're looking for
Ooh.
validation with people, right? And if you don't get that validation, now what happens is you begin to offer yourself at a discount to those people to get said validation.
Whew. Hey man, look, I just got hey, you cooking right now, man. Go ahead, go ahead. You hey, look, Crisco, you got the pan, the flame on full
Hey,
tilt.
bro, the reason that I can speak like this because I'm talking about myself, right? You look for validation in a lot of things that really don't even validate you. You get it and then you're still empty.
Mm-hmm.
You get the chick and then you're still empty. You know, when you're younger, you're chasing and trying to collect all these things to hide the pain and hurt the trauma that you're dealing with. Instead of going to deal with your trauma. See, society has done us a disservice as black men. Don't cry. That's weak. Don't say that. Don't say this, right? Now you're walking around angry, carrying all this in inner anger, and you're killing yourself slowly. It's like cancer is metastasizing. And you get to a place where I can speak on myself. There was a point I didn't even like looking at myself in the mirror because I didn't like me. But on the outside, it looked like I got everything going on. And I know somebody listening now, or somebody will watch this and see, you know what, that's me now.
Yeah. That's been me too in the past. 100%.
So again, so now we're freeing people by being brave enough to have this story and say, yeah, I got trauma. I had I had abandonment issues. And the crazy thing about it, if you don't deal with that stuff, even if you don't know your biological father, right, or your biological mother, you can still repeat those mistakes and don't even know that person. Because I can say that I've done and I've repeated some of those same mistakes as I begin to learn about my biological father. And
Mm-hmm.
so what happens is you got to get therapy, you got to deal with the trauma, you got to break up your hardness, the follow ground of your heart, you know, give it to God, seek a therapist, and then deal with the hole in your heart, the HOLE in your heart, so you can become WHOLE, whole, right? A lot of times we think we're whole, but we're really walking around with a hole in our heart, a hole in our spirit, and we're just putting a patch on it, trying to dress it up, but it's steady bleeding, right? We're putting a band-aid on a bullet wound.
Man, that's deep. That's deep. So I've heard you talk about some of your near-death experiences because I think it's important. Uh, I I'm gonna get kind of nerdy for a second, right? I think it's important to take a blank canvas and paint the picture so people can understand where you come from, how you evolved, how you got to this point now, right? Because again, is power in sharing stories. So, like I said, I've heard you talk about near-death experience you had. Can you tell the listeners about those experiences?
Yeah, man, I've literally had 4 assassination attempts on my life. That's because God had something within me, right, that the devil did not want me to release to the world. And so I was always told that I was going to, be in ministry or do, something for God. I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that at all. That's not me. I want to play football. I want to be like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is the enemy will begin to try to get you out of the way so you can't go forth in the assignment that God has placed within you. But one thing about God, when He's placed that assignment in you and He wants it done, the devil can't do nothing with you. He can send his imps after you to assassinate you, but always God always got the protection for you. So I literally fell. My dad was in the Air Force. We were in Montana. Me and a friend of mine were hanging out. Had to be home before the street light came on. We were kind of a clip away from from where we lived at on base housing. So it was a guy that went to church with me and with the family because wasn't that many of us in Great Falls, Montana at the time.
All right.
And so we had to. He saw us. He's like, I know y'all got to get home. He threw his bikes. We threw our bikes in his truck. It was like a little Datsun truck, old school Datsun. He was sitting on the inside. I was sitting on the outside. Single cab truck. Literally, as the truck was moving, turning into the street, the door just flew open and I fell out of the truck and I actually fell on my face in a busy intersection. It honestly was just by the grace of God that a car missed me or the car wasn't right behind us because literally I would have got ran over. So that's the first time. That was about 13, 14 years old. Second time, me and my mom was in the choir for the church that we went through up there. They had a really, nice choir. And we were going to Missoula, Montana for like a choir competition. And we were in a van and we were going to, if you look up Rogers Pass is like one of the highest peaks in Montana. And it began to snow and sleet. And literally there was no guardrail on that. So it was literally like one of those one lane highways you see in the movies that just was like going up and winding and winding. And the van began to slide towards the edge of the cliff. And literally, if that van would have failed, we probably still would have been down there with all of our bones, so to speak, because it was just that far down. And literally, they started screaming, "Jesus, Jesus!" All the women, because it was just like some children and parents and women and men, and they just started praying and singing, crying out to God, and the van literally stopped like a foot from the edge of the cliff. That's the second time. I was about 15 then. Third time, I was in the military. We used to go hang out, and this when I was in the Army. I was stationed in Fort Ord, California. We used to go to this club about an hour from Post called DB Cooper's. It used to be popping back in the day. This is like mid-90s, so it's like an hour away from Post. So we used to go every Thursday night. Take that hour drive to the club, kick it, come back home. Get up, go to formation the next morning. You know how you do in the military.
Yeah. I say who.
So one of my partners, he was a designated driver. He wasn't supposed to be drinking, but I guess he ended up drinking. And literally, we kicked it. We had a good time, drinking. My other partner, Hall, was drinking. I got in the back seat. My boy Hall got in the front seat. The other guy, the driver, I'm not going to mention his name. I don't want to put them out there like that. He was driving. And so last thing I remember was getting in the car. I've been drinking at the club. I'm 21 years old. So I just remember going to sleep in the back of the car. I literally woke up with like a bright light. And it was a state trooper, but I'm like, man, have I died? I'm going to sleep. I'm literally like, you see in the movie, just a real bright light was his fat light. So they had pulled me out there. So literally he had ran up under a semi in the shoot, man. It looked like, I'm surprised that them two weren't decapitated, man. Literally, the front end and the top of the car was like smashed in, like it went through a junkyard and they just smashed it.
Oh wow!
I wasn't as bad because I was in the back. And I didn't think nothing of it, Get up, go shoot, and stayed in the hospital for like half a day. Got out, got back to Post, back in the NCO club on Fort Ord the next night, and finally at Hood. I ended up getting shot at point blank range in the stomach and survived that. Shouldn't have survived that. The doctor was like, bro, if that bullet would have went half a centimeter the other way, it would have hit your aorta and you would have bled out instantly. But God being God, he kind of skillfully guided the bullet into my body and it hit lacerated my liver. The liver repairs itself. This is what I'm saying, how dope God is. Literally, the bullet just lies close to my spine, but they didn't want to pull it out because they were worried about me being paralyzed. So that was the fourth and final straw. And then after that, I started to kind of wake up and it was like, okay. Grandma was like, all right, boy, what's going on with you? God got something for you. This is too much. This is too often. You better stop running like Jonah. Start paying attention to the context clues that God is giving you. And there's somebody on this call watching this live right now, that God is dropping context clues. He's dropping them left and right, and you're not paying attention to them. Look, pay attention to them, because when God wants you, He gonna have you. He gonna get you. So just pay attention. So that's my story, right? 4 times, literally. Like, survived each and every one of them by the grace of God. So me doing what I'm doing now is why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I'm on borrowed time. My children shouldn't be here. My children should not be here. Let me read. I have to tell my children this all the time. None of y'all should be here because I'm not supposed to be here. Literally was in Fort Darnell Army Community Hospital for almost a month. 2 surgeries. They had to go back in and remove blood clots from my lungs. Like, so I got, I'm like the cut like a slab of beef from like right up under my chest all the way to my belly button. I got another slice right here where they went in to remove the blood clots from my lungs. I got all kind of little puncture wounds in my body for where they had two. I literally had twos. I have morphine where literally I would just shoot myself up with morphine every time I got pain. Of course, they controlled the dosage, but I was in that much pain that I would have to hit it. You know, when I wake up, I may be up for maybe 20, 30 minutes, hit that morphine, go back to sleep. But it was my stepdad. He was there. When I woke up from the initial surgeries, he flew from Alabama. Now, that's my dad now. You know, I call him my dad because he was a dad to me. But he was sitting there with a Bible praying for me. I had a bunch of praying people for me. And so God has had his hand on me my entire life. So it's time for me to like move forward in what God has called me to do. So godly success looks like what I'm doing now based on where God's brought me from.
Man, that is a blessing, man. Like I said, brother, you got one incredible man testimony, one incredible story. I want to talk about something you said too about wasting time, right? And now I'm talking about myself now, right? You know, look, I'm pretty much an open book. You know, I might not have been this open maybe 10, 15 years ago, but you know, there's this phrase that people always say that youth is wasted on the young. And I think in my particular case, like you said, you're getting all these context clues, you know, guys saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this, right? I'm gonna give an example of that. So I've always, when I was growing up, man, somebody probably gonna think I'm playing when I say this, but like in middle school, I was in drama club, I did some acting, and I've always been interested in like TV and radio. But of course, you know, different path, go join the military. And I'm thankful for it because there's so many lessons I learned from being in the army that I think if I stayed in Mississippi, kind of same premise, might not necessarily be here. Jackson, Mississippi, where I was born and raised, is a very dangerous place. I love it because I was born and raised there, but it's a lot of bad stuff, gangs, drugs, that kind of stuff. I mean, there's also a lot of positive sides. Now, I grew up in an era where I learned a lot of lessons early about life that, some people, if you live in a different part of the world, you might not necessarily get these life lessons, right? So back on wasting time, there's a lot of stuff that I think I probably should have done way before now, way before, getting into my 40s and things like that. And I think that we do sometimes procrastinate a lot. We do what we want to do, right? Instead of what we've been assigned or called to do, right? I remember this back to a conversation me and you had when I was telling you, thank you, for agreeing to come on the show. And you basically in a nutshell told me like this was your assignment. Like you don't have to thank me, like this is what I'm supposed to do. I have to do this, right? And so staying on assignment and staying on task is, I think, sometimes we get so enamored by these other things that are going on. You got these people that want to keep up the status quo for other people. Then, you have people that want to be in a lane, but the lane is not necessarily for you, right? Everybody has something that they're passionate about. Everybody has something that they have a God-given talent to do, right? And I feel like when you have that God-given talent, it's not work. It's not something that's going to require maybe necessarily a lot of you because it's already in you. So how do you feel about just again kind of going back on the premise of wasting time? But then the other question I would like to ask is, man, how do you stay so resilient with all this stuff that has happened that you've been through. Now I know obviously God is going to be if not the whole part, a 99.9%. But like, how do you stay resilient? Because there are people out here that man, one bad thing happens to them, and it's the end of the world. Oh, I can't do it anymore. Look, I was on assignment. Now I'm off of it. Bump that assignment. I'm going to the next. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, man, appreciate you asking that question. So, time, right? I often say that time is a non-refundable asset that you can't buy back, you can't get back. I can't say, hey, Marcus, I'm gonna give you. I know I got 80 years. I'm gonna give you 15 of mine, and you move forward with that. So,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things as far as time is concerned is a lot of times you really are where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be. You may have made some mistakes, you may have did some things, you may have given up, but that just meant that you weren't ready to handle it. You weren't supposed to be there, right? So when you find out where you're supposed to be, so how you for me, just because you have a passion for something doesn't mean that's your assignment from God either, right? You can work on your passion project while you do your assignment from God, right? So like I said, I used to love health and fitness. I really just thought that was going to be my lane, right? I'm training people, help people get healthy, get in the best shape of their life. But literally, that was the catalyst that pushed me to where I needed to go. So sometimes your passion is going to push you exactly where you need to go. Oftentimes, you got to understand. So you got your, I call it the sweet spot. So it's where your value, your talent, and your passion all intersect. And so wherever those intersect, that's probably where you should be at. So once you figure that out, now you move forward and understand that time is of the essence. There's a scripture, I think it's Psalms 90 and 12, where Moses says, he asked God to teach me the number of my days so I may gain my heart of wisdom. So that's one of my prayers each and every day is that God teach me the number of my days, meaning help me to maximize every day that you give me. And so that I gain a heart of wisdom, I know what to do with this time that I have, right? And I'm intentional about doing what needs to be done. Because once you do know what lane you're supposed to be in, now you should move forward, right? God will give you he'll let you know you're in the right space by just confirmation, revelation, opportunities, doors opening. Now you know you're in the right space, right? And so what happens is, as you see that, you continue to trust God. And as far as resilience is concerned, a diamond is only a diamond because it was buried deep and it survived extreme pressure and heat to be formed into a diamond, right? So if you can't take the heat, if you can't take the pressure, and you say that you want something, then you might be a cubic zirconia. I'm just saying, think about this. A cake is not a cake until it's put in the oven and baked at 400 degrees or 375 degrees or 350 degrees. And the cake rises the more done it gets, right? And so once it rises to the right level, it's golden brown, the temperature is right on the inside, it's perfect. But if you don't cook that cake long enough, it's not going to rise to its potential. It's not going to look like you want it to look. It's not going to taste like you want it to taste. So the heat has to come because it contributes to the elevation and the rising of the cake. So if you can't stand the heat, that means you don't want to go through the process. It means you just want the outcome. As my favorite coach and one of the greatest voices on leadership to me, Nick Saban says, we have to quit trusting and looking at the scoreboard and understand we need to value the process. The process is what makes you who you are. The daily discipline, overcoming obstacles, doing what needs to be done when you don't feel like it, right? Discipline is what unlocks inner genius. It's not these people are smarter than you. They may be a little smarter than you in some spaces, but they've had the discipline to do what needs to be done. I heard John Maxwell says, in order to become an expert at something, you have to do that thing an hour per day for at least 5 years. So if you ain't reached that 5 years and you're only 6 months in and it's not going the way you want it to go, why are you complaining? Like everybody faces life. I keep saying life is gonna life. That's just an opportunity for God to God. It's an opportunity for Him to show you who He is, what He's capable of, and basically show you what's in you. The devil cannot stop anything that God placed inside of us. We are the ones that stop ourselves from releasing what God has given us. And the obstacles and the things that come, those are what stop us. So, in order for us to get where we want to get, we got to become what we want to be first. So, here, repeat this. In order to get a thing, first you have to be the thing. Then you get the thing. You don't get the thing and then you work up to becoming the thing, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's
So a
like
lot
that's
of times we have to be what we want. And the resilience, it starts with me, is I guard my gates, my eyes, my ears, my mouth. I watch what I watch who I listen to, and I watch what I say about myself. Who has your ears has your heart. Who has your ears controls what you do. Because once it gets in your ear, it becomes a thought. Once it becomes a thought, you marinate on that thought long enough, it moves to your heart, and your heart is your control center. Now you start acting on those emotions, right? And we have to understand emotions are going to come. We need to move with facts and move with intentionality and move towards where we want to go. We can't do that, right? Talk and change is very easy. I can talk about who I want to be, but also we look at other people and they only show you the highlights. You look at people on social media, you only see the highlights. You don't see the negatives, you don't see the L's that they've taken. You don't see any of those.
right, right.
So now you're basing your life on somebody else's story, but you are supposed to write your own story, and they face obstacles just like you. The difference is they overcome. Or how do you know that they didn't even cheat to get where they got?
That's true.
So they say comparison is the thief of joy, right? So we have to stop comparing ourselves. We got to stop measuring ourselves up to other people, because one person might get there at 40, it might take you to 60 to get there. It don't make you unsuccessful. It just was your time for you to get there, because you had to learn at a different place, at a different speed. You had to learn a different lesson in order to be able to sustain what God has given you. And I say this all the time. I want God to bless you, Marcus. I want him to blow your podcast up. I want him to let you sign a podcast deal. Because now I see what's available to me, and I understand that I can't wear your shoes. You might wear a 13, whereas I wear a 12. If I try to put a size 13 on, them shoes gonna be flopping on my feet. I only can wear a size 12, and that 12 is gonna fit me just perfect.
Right, right. Man, look, hey, look, we are cooking. Oh my God. So let me ask you a question. Looking back, and I guarantee I already know the answer to this question, but I'm gonna ask anyway for the sake of conversation. If there was anything that you could change if you look back, would you or would you not?
No, I wouldn't change anything about my story, because that's my story. The only thing I wish I would have been able to do is clearly hear the voice of God when He was speaking to me, and continue and actually do the work that I needed to do on self. Oftentimes we look at what everybody else has, or like even like my wife. If things ain't going my way, I might look at her versus looking to myself. I wish I would have learned, as they say, knowledge of self, checking myself, being leading myself much better. That's the only thing I would change about myself, is learning to lead myself earlier in the process.
Awesome, awesome. So one of the things, on another note, one of the things I want to do in the future, is to get people like yourself, other people that are inspire others, have aspiration. So we can just get together, have more conversation like this. We talk about real issues, things that affect us all. I feel like drama and hardship is not um, it's not something that's synonymous with like skin color. Everybody has something going on, right? With white, black, whatever, right? Everybody has something going on, and we just need to be able to, again, like have these platforms, talk about what's going on, and hear each other out. I think a lot of times we hear, but we don't listen, and it's a difference between hearing something and listening. I hear a bunch of stuff every day, but it not necessarily mean that I listen to it either, right? We also got to be mindful of how we're modeling, especially like people like myself and you that are our fathers, or how we model to our children. I gotta say something funny. So everybody, my daughter, I have a baby girl. She always wants me to give shout outs when I get on the podcast, things like that, right? But it was funny. She's like one of my biggest supporters. And random this morning, I was dropping her off at school. She said, "Good luck on your podcast, Dad." And she said, "And don't stutter." I was like, who talks like that? But that's my boo. Love you, Isabella, Julian, Orlando, Malik. Just shout out to all my children. But before we close, is there anything you want to leave the listeners with?
Yeah, most definitely. Appreciate that. That's great to see you shout your children out. Want to shout out my wife, my support system. I call her my CFO and director, babe. My children, each and every one of them. My goal for them is to model something that they take and they grow exponentially and take it further than what I've done. And so that's one thing that I want them to know, and they know this is why I do what I do. But I want you to think about this analogy. This is for your listeners. If you're holding a cup of coffee, I heard this somewhere, I can't remember where I heard it, but I love it, so profound. And someone comes along and bumps you, and it makes you shake your arm, and you start to spill coffee everywhere. Why did you spill the coffee? Did you spill the coffee because somebody bumped you? No. You spilled the coffee because coffee was in the cup. If somebody would have bumped you and you would have had tea in your cup, you would have spilled tea. If you would have had water in that cup, you would have spilled water. If you would have had Kool-Aid in the cup, you would spill Kool-Aid. So I say this to say, what's in you is going to come out you. So whatever it is that you have within you, if it's pain, if it's trauma, if it's hurt, if it's anger, when you're bumped, that's what's going to come out of you. But if you have joy, if you have peace, if you have discipline, if you have grace, that's going to come out you. So concentrate on what you are putting in you. The problem that you face is often not the problem. The problem is often your actions and what you believe about yourself. And the words that you speak about yourself are a window to your heart. So watch the words that you say about yourself, affirm yourself, and understand that you are somebody that is fearfully and wonderfully made. And in closing, I'll give you guys my favorite saying: stop talking tough and living weak. Because what you put out there, you're going to face. And I say that to myself all the time, because I say that, and then I'm immediately met with obstacles. Life starts to life. And then that comes to my mind. Did I talk tough? And now am I going to live weak? So keep that in mind as you move forward. What's in you is going to come out you. Be careful what you say about yourself, and stop talking tough and living weak.
Man, definitely appreciate you for coming on the show, good brother. We are definitely gonna do this again. He didn't say he didn't agree to do it, but I know him. He's gonna be on assignment, as he said. So we definitely would love to have you again. Thank you for coming on.
Anytime, bro.
Absolutely. So it's gonna be a little different today as we get ready to close. I want to dedicate this show to somebody who was, very near and dear to my heart, mentor, a brother, a friend. He passed away recently this month. Is Hort Ward Sr., somebody who always, no matter what, believed in me, encouraged me, pushed me. So I want to dedicate this show to him. And I know you are watching, Fred. Love you. Thank you for every lesson you taught me while you're here on this earth. And I promise you that we will definitely keep your name alive. But until then, I invite you all to tune in to the next episode of Real Talk with Marcus McCoy. Until then, it's been real.